Tonight, new report reveals widespread fraud in pricing of cocoa, costing farmers about 10% of their income, with purchasing clerks accused of adjusting weighing scales.
The scale adjustment, one, is a fraud, and it's a known secret to everybody that purchasing clerks are adjusting scales, and it will directly affect the farmer's income.
The cocoa buying companies have been contesting these claims, which first emerged in a Joy News documentary, Missing Kilos. We bring you the latest on the injunction and also in the Send Ghana report. We hear from Cocoa Board, which says they've already commissioned an investigation into the matter.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Bond Savings and Loans. Your success, our passion. Also brought to you by Gasem Cement, the Nation Build, and Vodafone. The future is exciting. Ready. Now, a new report out tonight has revealed widespread fraud in the pricing of cocoa, with purchasing clerks accused of adjusting weighing scales to the disadvantage of farmers. The Send Ghana report show that the alleged fraudulent activity is causing cocoa farmers to lose about 10% of their expected incomes, crippling their livelihoods. It will be recalled a Joy News documentary, Missing Kilos, highlighted this phenomenon, prompting illegal action by the licensed cocoa buying companies. They sought to stop the documentary from airing. They've placed an injunction on that, and the case has traveled as far as the Supreme Court. The Court of Appeal was expected to sit on it today, but it has been adjourned. Well, we'll get more on that particular case shortly, but Joseph Opoku-Gakpo has a copy of the Send Ghana report highlighting this phenomenon, which was recently released. Joseph, tell us more about this report.
So this is a report that Send Ghana, the civil society organization, as well as UTZ, that's Oots Rainforest Alliance, and a number of agencies put together. And essentially, they were assessing the farm gate price and also the income of cocoa farmers, and they came to a number of conclusions, including how the farmers are not benefiting from a lot of the support that they are supposed to be getting, including things like the fertilizer scheme and even some other support policies. And then somewhere in there, they highlighted very hugely the issue with alleged fraudulent activities by the cocoa purchasing clerks.
Okay, so let's get into some of the details. And the issue of fraud in the weighing of cocoa, what did the study reveal? So
this is, I'm quoting directly from the study. It says that it's actually the third most important factor in determining and setting the local price and how it's actually impacting cocoa farmers. According to the study, it says that the cocoa farmers who responded to the survey indicated that they had perceived a situation where there was weighing scale adjustment fraud, and the report uses that word, weighing scale adjustment fraud, perpetrated by the purchasing clerks of the local Ghanaian buying agencies at the points of sale of dried cocoa beans, and also at the various buying centers and also the various depots. The report says that we have a situation where the normal channel when it comes to the purchase of dried cocoa beans in the Ghanaian industry is for the farmer to get his dried beans in sacks to a center, and then the dried beans will then be weighed on a scale by a purchasing clerk of a licensed buying company, which is supposed to be one that has been approved by Cocoa Board. Now, in the course of the study, it was ascertained that there was widespread perception among the farmers that the purchasing clerks manipulated the scale to reduce the price which is eventually paid to farmers. And the report says this fraud involving the adjustment of the weighing scale could reduce the income that farmers are obtaining from the sale of each 64 kilogram bag of cocoa beans by about 10%, up to 10%. So it's a range that's significant. So it gives a range of between 4 and 10%. But it's so terrible, the report says, that farmers could be losing as much as 1/10 of how much they are getting from the cocoa as a result of the adjustment of the scale. Now, the report goes on to make the point that from the viewpoint of a lot of the cocoa farmers, this reduction is negatively impacting their income, and that it's led to a reduction in how much they are making, reducing their incomes, and making it quite difficult for them to actually help live themselves out of poverty and all. So the report highlights a phenomenon where for people who are less educated, there is a situation where they are more likely to be affected by the fraudulent situations. Hence, a request that there should be more education directed at cocoa farmers. And the report says that the more educated a farmer, the higher the perception of weighing scale fraud at the point of sale of the cocoa.
Because they're unable to detect.
Because they're unable to detect. This is the president of the Cocoa Farmers Association. He's been speaking at the launch of this particular report, indicating that this situation is really something that requires urgent attention.
The scale adjustment, one, is a fraud, and it's a known secret to everybody that purchasing clerks are adjusting scales. Assuming on average, adjustment of the scale goes to say 5 kg. Imagine the amount of money the farmer will lose, and it will directly affect the farmer's income. Why don't we at least make it compulsory that all LBCs, their agents or the purchasing clerks who are working for them must also put a watch on the purchasing clerks in such a way that they are using the right weighing skills or system. The LBCs can in a way argue their case out when they are also fighting for their fees or whatever commission or fee from Cocoa Board when they are sharing the 30% that Cocoa Board used to run its operations. So on that score, I say that we farmers, we are so not comfortable with how the cocoa is weighed.
And Joseph, so the farmers themselves were at this launch. They confirm that this is happening. What is your own recommendation? So
they're saying that there should be electronic scales instead of the manual one which is currently in use. That they think if efforts are made to bring more of that into use by the purchasing clerks, it will help deal with the situation. But they drew attention that Cocoa Board has repeatedly said the electronic scales are more expensive to acquire, which is how come it's not gotten to a lot of the cocoa farmers. And the Cocoa Board official who was at the event actually backed the suggestion that helping bring in the scales would be the electronic scale will be the surest way to deal with the problem. Let's hear from the cocoa farmer on this particular suggestion.
For me and on behalf of the farmers, I propose that the use of the manual scale, it has been with us for some years now. It's about time that we migrate from the use of the manual scales to electronic scales. Sometimes we are told that the cost of the electronic scale is very expensive. In the absence of the electronic scale, we are also saying that we must make available testing stones in all areas. We are told that we have testing stones in all the communities. That's what we are told. And they are with the chief farmers. But the question is, are the chief farmers releasing the testing stones for farmers to make use of it? It's no. That is a reality. So on behalf of the farmers, we are appealing to the regulator that let us try to see if we can make testing stones, which may not be all that expensive, available. And let's insist that all purchasing clerks are making compulsory use of the testing stones.
And that's the chairman of the Cocoa Abrapoba Association, Mr. Ismaila Pomase. I want to bring in now Cocoa Board. Spokesperson for Cocoa Board is Fifi Boafo. Joins us on the telephone line right now. Fifi, thank you for your time here on Top Story.
My pleasure.
This obviously must have come to the attention of Cocoa Board. What has been done about it?
Well, let me say that what the NGO
Send Ghana
says is done. I think it's way related, and then it's little of what has already been done. It's belated in the sense that Cocoa Board over 6-7 months took steps to address the issue. So if at this point in time Ghana says they are acting on it, then it's an indication that probably they have not taken time to realize what has happened in the industry, and they are now acting, seeking to make recommendation for some action. I say this because about 2 years ago, the chief executive went round and there were some whistle stops at some license buying centers where it was revealed that indeed some LBCs have adjusted their weighing scales. This influenced a decision by management to commission Standards Authority to do a thorough work across the country or the cocoa buying regions to assess the state of the scales and as to whether or not indeed the farmers are being cheated by these license buying companies. The report that was submitted to Cocoa Board indeed confirmed that earlier report we had, that the license buying companies were cheating the cocoa farmers. Some 3, 4 kilos, 5 kilos, 7 kilos, and in some very remote areas, as bad as 11 kilos were reported. Based on this, Cocoa Board has decided that we are fading off the use of manual weighing scales by introducing electronic scales. I can tell you that as we speak this evening, the processes of acquiring these electronic scales are ongoing, and then very soon the plan is that we will make sure every license buying company is using the electronic scale to ensure that this cheating going on in the system is dealt with once and for all. So, do you have a time frame you're working within which period you hope all the license buyers will have this electronic scale? The expectation of management is that before we start the new cocoa season, it could be earlier, but worst case scenario, the expectation is that before we start the new cocoa season, which is in October, all license buying companies will be using the electronic scales. I mean, so this will be this year? This year, yes. The cocoa farmers at this event where the report was launched say, when it was brought up, they say they've had a promise like this before where Cocoa Board had conceded that electronic scales will be brought in, but then the cost had been a factor, always cited by Cocoa Board to say we were not able to meet the deadline. What do you say to them, those who are skeptical? Well, I do not know of the excuse that because of cost, the introduction of weighing scales will not have, electronic scales will not happen. But what I can confirm to you that the process has already started, and there's no such suggestion to the effect that because of the cost involved, electronic scales will not be introduced. Every farm has to be rest assured because management is very concerned about what has happened. Indeed, when the report first came, there were even suggestions to the effect that we are going to deduct at the head office the payment to these license buying companies, and the money is transferred to the cocoa farmers who weigh their cocoa at that particular station. But of course, in order to stop it completely, that is why management took the decision that to go beyond just punishing these license buying companies, but fixing the problem once and for all. At this stage, I don't think something is going to change, and definitely before the end of the year, there shall be the introduction of the electronic scales to cure the problem which we face. What the Standards Authority had found essentially is that fraud is being perpetrated on our cocoa farmers. Will there be prosecution? What the Standards Authority have done is to report for us to know the extent of the problem. Yes, I can confirm to you that the problem is being fixed. But what I'm unable to confirm, because I do not speak for myself, I speak for the organization. I know different divisions and departments have been tasked to do different things. And then if it happens that there will be some prosecution, definitely that will happen, and we shall report that to you at that point in time. But as of this moment, your immediate objective is to fix the fundamental problem of the scales that are used. And you touched on a point about the consideration to make deductions, because these poor farmers, and the alarming figures you gave us in some areas were up to they say 11 kilos, they lose that. I mean, when they sell their cocoa, you wanted to considering deductions to the license buyer so they can then reinvest these cocoa farmers. Is that something that you've taken a decision on and will be implementing? Yes, a decision was taken at a meeting with all the license buying companies where the chief executive announced to them that going forward, if a team is sent around and then a particular license buying company, we identify that this is what is happening. By the end of the cocoa season, we'll calculate the number or the tons or the bags of cocoa bought at that station. And then if you have adjusted your scale, say 3 kilos, 4 kilos, or 5 kilos, all the cocoa you bought at that station will be multiplied by the kilos you've adjusted your scale, deducted from the money that is supposed to be paid to you as a license buying company. And then we'll look at the people who have sold their cocoa to that license buying company at that station, and then the money will be sent and shared to the farmers who sold their cocoa to that license buying company. So indeed, that has been communicated to the license buying companies, and they are aware of that.
And Fifi, so this currently with the farmers losing, I mean, Ghana puts it at some 10% of their livelihood. We know how much the cocoa farmers mean for this particular economy. I wonder, in all the conversations with the license buyers, what have been their own reaction to the outcome of the Standards Authority investigation? Did they deny it or they accept culpability?
I will wish for us to probably work with what Standards Authority have done, because that is more scientific and that is more reliable to work with. What's in Ghana, if I listen to the report, is a bit speculative to say that it's our suspicion that that's what is happening. So
I guess my question is, what's been the reaction of the license buyers to the Standards Authority's own investigations, the outcome that they actually came to? Well, have they accepted culpability?
Yes, to an extent, some of them do. What they say is that, the farmers, some of them fail to dry the cocoa well, and then if you do not dry the cocoa very well, at a time of also letting Cocoa Board or CMC take over, they lose some if you weigh the cocoa. So that is the reason why they also adjust their scale. But that's not a justification to say that, well, the farmer failed to dry the cocoa very well. So based on that, you are also adjusting your scale. It is incumbent on you to ensure that before you take delivery of the cocoa from the farmer, it is well dried, and that is the point you take it. So yes, indeed, they are very much aware of the problem, and what Standards Authority did is scientific work. The people were there. They indeed confirmed that, yes, those scales have been adjusted. So they cannot argue with Cocoa Board over that, and that is why we've put in place measures to resolve the problem.
Administratively, whilst you consider the route of prosecution, doesn't Cocoa Board have the power at least to fire people, interdict people, whilst this whole problem process is going on to fix the scales?
These people are not persons who work for Cocoa Board. They are companies who work with us. But of course, the Cocoa Board as a regulator has the power to whether or not to give you the license or the permission to work. Realizing what has happened, that is why I've told you that we are engaging and we are taking steps to resolve the problems. If it gets to a point whereby it shows that what you have done as a license buying company or have allowed your assigned or agent to do contravenes the law governing the cocoa industry, I can assure you that the right steps will be taken to ensure that those people do not go unpunished.
I'm grateful Fifi Bafo speaks for Cocoa Board tonight. If you're just joining us, the Ghana Standards Authority has indeed confirmed that poor cocoa farmers across the country have been duped over a period of time when it comes to the weighing of their cocoas. Ghana puts a figure at some 10%, but as we've just heard there, Ghana Standards Authority's own investigations found cases of farmers losing up to 11 kilos because of the fraudulent scales that license buyers were using there. Ghana says the farmers are losing up to 10% of their livelihood in some instances. We have a copy of that Standards Authority report into this particular allegation. And Joseph, what does he say?
So they've actually gone ahead to find some of the commodity buying companies.
Okay, so there are some individual. Let's quickly explain these companies. Who are they exactly?
So these are the license buying companies. Now, what Cocoa Board does is that it has licensed a number of companies which are private firms to buy cocoa from the farmers on behalf of Cocoa Board and get those cocoa beans transported to the port, and then Cocoa Board pays them a margin depending on how many kilograms of cocoa they're able to buy from the farmers and transport. So these are not individuals that work for Cocoa Board as an institution. A lot of them are private firms which require a license from Cocoa Board before they are able to engage in.
Yeah, I mean, and it's clear from what Fifi Bafo tells us. So what Cocoa Board can do is withdraw licenses. That's
the ultimate thing that they would want to do if they would want to give them the most severest.
But from what Fifi says, that decision hasn't been made yet. I mean, what they're thinking right now is about trying to change the scales. It says so let's go into the details of this particular report.
So the Standards Authority, after they did their investigation, actually sent notices of fines as penalties to some of those companies. For example, in a letter from Professor Alex Dodu, who is the Standards Boss Authority boss, he wrote to one of the firms and indicated that the Standards Authority, per the Weights and Measures Act 1975, that particular firm had actually breached the situation with the scales that were being used by their purchasing clerks. And then he went on to quote section 22 of that particular act, which says that anyone who commits any offense when it comes to fraud in issues of weighing shall be guilty of an offense and liable on summary conviction to imprisonment not exceeding 2 years or to a fine or both. He states all of that, and then in the concluding part to that particular company, then he puts a fine that they are slapping on them. He says, by this clause, your company is to pay an amount of 10,200 Ghana cedis as infringement fee, and he goes on to say the company is also warned to desist from these more practices since future punishments will be punitive. And then he goes on to say we count on your usual cooperation in enforcing the Weights and Measures Act to the fullest. So Professor Dodu, as at when you look at this letter, the 24th of September 2019, had actually written and taken action against some of these companies and investigated and fined them to the tune of 10,200 Ghana cedis when it comes to some of these infringements. And with this particular company, what they found was a very widespread situation with their investigation in several parts of the country, including Konongo, Bekwai, Dubiase, Agonaswedu. They were found to have had situations of their skills being adjusted to the disadvantage of farmers, hence this particular action.
I mean, clearly this is something that our investigations had uncovered, that the license buying companies had been fighting in the court, seeking to stop us from broadcasting what we had found. Because, and again, it appears, or it's very clear now, that the Standards Authority's own investigation is corroborating the investigation that we are yet to air because it's still in court.
So this has been developing for well about a year now. Our investigative journalist Kwetenati went to the ground, visited some of the areas where cocoa is purchased, and spoke to some of the farmers, did investigation, looked into the said adjustment of skills, found evidence that farmers were being disadvantaged. And then when the promo of the documentary was running, then the license buying companies that I just told you who they are, they have a collective group. They went to court, sought an injunction. The case has run from the High Court all the way to the Supreme Court. Today there was supposed to have been a session at the Appeals Court, which never came on. But what is becoming clear is that those concerns as contained in the documentary that Kwetenati found in his investigative report has been corroborated not only by the Ghana Cocoa Board but also by the Ghana Standards Authority.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Let's speak to Alhaji Abdul Razak Adamu. He's a licensed cocoa buyer. Joins us on the telephone line right now. Thank you, Mr. Adamu, for your time here on Top Story.
Good evening, and thank you very much, and good evening to your listeners.
We just had confirmation from Cocoa Board that the Standards Authority had done investigations and found that licensed buyers are cheating our cocoa farmers with adjusted scales. Your reaction?
Yes, indeed, most of us have been issued a fine from Standard Authority through Cocoa Board because of the irregularity with the scale weight that they have found in the field. So it's a story which, for me, I think is true. It's not something that we can deny. It's a fact that most of the scales have been adjusted.
Did you receive a fine yourself?
Yes, Yes, of course. My company has been found. Has been fined, but we petition back because the reason is that most of the scale that they found being adjusted are no more being used by my operatives, because most of the multinationals, they've gone into massive aggressive aggressive marketing strategy to win our farmers from us. So those scales are virtually being used by those people. They are manipulating the producer price. They are misapplying the premium money, and most of the purchasing clerks are with them now. So when we were fined, we wrote to them that this scale that they claim to belong to us are no more in operation with us.
Okay, but they've been used in the past.
They've been used in the past. You know, the reason why we cannot hold those scale as our property, because they are no more with us. And if they are with me, we have our scale mechanics, which goes every at least 4 times in a year.
Yeah, let me ask you, how much were you fined?
We're fined something there about 7,000 something.
And the fundamental question, really, Ms. Adamu, why, in God's name, were you adjusting the scales to cheat our poor farmers?
Yes, Mr. Evans, this issue is not to do with management. It's also not to do with the company. These scales are brand new scales that most of us have bought and planted at the society level. So most of these things that are happening are something that are done at the back of the company. The company is never. But
in your name, using scales that you bought.
No, you see, we the reason why some of the scale they mention our name, because we've even customized our scale. But when the operatives goes on and do his own thing, we may not know what is happening. The only reason why this thing, the LBCs cannot pull out of this challenge is that because they've gone to court to challenge. For me, that challenge was a wasteless effort. They shouldn't have done that.
So I don't know if I have an answer to the question about, you say it's the company didn't know about the fraudulent activities, but these are people who are working for you.
Yes, they are working, and they're supposed to give us a signal when the scale is faulty.
Yeah, and yet that didn't happen.
They don't report to
those
us.
People. What you found out now? What have you done to them?
Like, if not because of this court case, that I don't know whether I'm right to comment about it or
no,
not.
because it's in court. Let us stay there. But what have you done to the people you found?
We should have seriously congratulated Joy FM for that, and they take action against our operatives.
I'm grateful that you joined us. That is Haji Abdul Razak Adamu, licensed cocoa buyer himself, confirming that his own employees were defrauding the cocoa farmers, and he's awaiting the outcome of a court action to decide what to do. So listen to Joy 99.7 FM News Night starts in a minute.